Hi, I'm the Space Quest Historian, and welcome to more of me talking to the camera shit. I'm enjoying this. This week we've been playing a bunch of walking simulators, and when I say a bunch, I actually mean two of them. Caligo and, what the hell was that other thing called? Oh yes, Dream, yes. Oh, such a wonderful dream we had. Now, one thing that struck me during the recording of these two episodes of walking simulators was that my co-commentators and I seem to have sort of a symbiotic understanding of what made a good walking simulator. Well, one of us did. Jim and I didn't seem to like them at all. But, I mean, there are some core fundamentals that are important for a good walking simulator to work, and I think I'm going to just lay them out there so we can all agree on them. Deal. First of all, let's get into what a walking simulator actually is. Well, it started out as sort of a derogatory term for games that don't involve a lot of gameplay, that basically just have you walking around some scenario, usually in the first person, actually mostly in the first person. Just walking around, not really interacting with as much as you were listening to a story unfold as you explored and uncovered shit. Premium examples within the genre are What Remains of Edith Finch, Gone Home, and a bunch of others. The Beginner's Guide is another good one, which is actually made by the same dude who did The Stanley Parable, also a very good walking simulator. And they were referred to as walking simulators derogatorily because, I mean, you don't actually play a game, all you're doing is like walking and exploring a story and learning interesting things and fiction. Who needs it? But apparently the genre just sort of took that in and became walking simulators, and now we've got stuff like Firewatch reaping all sorts of awards, probably were rewarded as well. Gone Home took home a number of like Game of the Year awards when it came out, much to the chagrin of the demographic. That means that a lot of developers have sat down and went, well, maybe I can make one too. I recently played a very, very good walking simulator called Trackless, which did have some interaction. I mean, you typed in verbs into the parser, but by and large, it was an exploration game. The Town of Light was another one that I played, which also had very light puzzle-solving elements, but mostly you were just wandering around hallways, picking up shit, and hearing the strange disembodied voice of either the protagonist or another person. The Town of Light had a bit of a narrative problem going on, but anyway, it looked pretty good. So yeah, so what makes a good walking simulator then? Well, first of all, exploration is absolutely key. Immersion is absolutely key. You can't really have a walking simulator without somewhere to walk. So you need to have a good location, and you need to be very immersive. That means the environment has to be believable. It doesn't have to be naturalistic. It doesn't have to be a house. It doesn't have to be the woods. It doesn't have to be, I mean, it could be, as in Dream, it could be this strange sprawling desert with a catacomb and a computer bank in the middle of nowhere and weirdly shaped gravestones and all this shit. That's perfectly fine. Could be in Edith Finch, it's a house that just is impossibly structured architecturally, like if you've got a kid living like 10 stories into the air in this flimsy little shack made out of wood? I don't think so. There's got to be a building code for that somewhere. But anyway, it just has to be immersive. I mean, you bought the architecture in Edith Finch because it was sort of leading you upwards and upwards and upwards all the time, and you know, it was just fantastic in that way. It's not very believable. It doesn't have to be believable like in the physical realm. It just has to be immersive. And the thing about immersion is that it's so easy to break immersion. It's so easy to get into a game and be reminded that you are playing a game. And that's one of the things you really should be careful about when making a walking simulator. Apparently, I'm now addressing every game dev out there who wants to make a walking sim. Good to meet you. Send me your game. I'd be very interested to play it. But anything sort of gamified is, well, I won't say it's unwelcomed because, again, I mean, you are expected to do something, but it has to be woven into the fabric of the environment you're exploring. So say you're supposed to find the combination for the locker in the sister's room, for instance. You find those in 2 secret panels somewhere in the house, spoiler, but that's not really a puzzle as much as it is just observing and reacting. Just like, go find this bit, it'll tell you how to proceed to the next bit. which is interesting game design because you're not actually solving a puzzle as much as you're observing your environment and interacting with it in that regard. And the importance of exploration cannot be overstated. You want to make an environment that wants to be explored. In Gone Home, you've got a darkened house and there's nobody around. In Edith Finch, you've got a house with all of these strange rooms and these fantasy settings, you know, places that can teleport you somewhere, and somehow you're just living their fantasies. Town of Light, you've got a giant asylum, abandoned asylum, that's just crawling with probably asbestos, but also ghosts. Well, the ghosts of the past kind of thing. So you want to have an environment that's alluring somehow. Could be foreboding, but also slightly alluring. Like you want to go in there and you want to look at everything. So it's not enough to just have a walking simulator in one person's room. You would need to have the whole house, or the forest, or the asylum. Actually, that's not a bad... We should have more games in asylums. Senscape, I'm looking at you. But that also means that you don't want to impede the player's progress. Now, one of the games we played this week, Caligo, had some very lovely graphics, and it had an outdoor environment where you could walk up and down the beach. And if you walked a bit too far, you just get cock-blocked by this invisible wall. And that's an immediate immersion breaker. You look at something off in the distance and you go, I want to go there. And you can't, because fuck you. Point is, you don't want to have an environment where the protagonist can't go somewhere for some unexplained reason. In Gone Home, you can't leave the house because you have to wait for someone to get home. In Edith Finch, you don't want to leave because you're looking for something or other. Can't really remember. It's quite important, I think. Town of Lights, you've come to find your memories and you want to explore and you want to do something. Beginner's Guide, you're trapped in some asshole's continuing loop of games that he wants to show you, and well, the only way out is to fucking quit the game. And while we're at it, don't skimp on the visuals. I mean, it's one thing to have acutely defined boundaries and an interesting environment to explore, but you also want to really, lovingly detail that environment. Now, the two games we played this week, Caligo and Dream. Caligo won in the presentation department, at least for me. Someone really went to some painstaking effort, that's the word I'm looking for, effort to detail, to care for the environment, to make it look really inviting or nightmarish depending on your disposition, whereas Dream was a bit more sparse in that regard. And I'm not saying you have to be a master at the art of 3D, but it helps. Now, as you're exploring an environment and you're looking around at all the shit that's present in the environment, of course you want to have a good story to go along with it, because what we're really after in a walking simulator, the alluring part is not necessarily the gameplay, because there's not a lot of it, and it's not necessarily just the environment, although that's sort of the carrot on the stick. What you're really after is the story, and the one thing that walking simulators really do very good, I should have opened with this by the way, is tell a story. I mean, I love adventure games, don't get me wrong. People love RPGs, I'm fascinated by them, but I can't play them because of all the number juggling and stats and shit. And the combat, not really good on the combat thing, but they also tell very good stories. Narrative. Well, just narrative, really. Narrative, the art of storytelling is, well, something that we've done since time immemorial. We've had campfire stories, and then we started writing the stories down, and that became, the printed media, books, and stuff like that. Well, we got movies, and then now we've got computer games. And computer games are just as viable a medium for storytelling as any of the others. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And I was absolutely convinced that adventure games were the next logical stepping stone from movies and books and campfire stories and anything going back to that, age-old tradition of, narrative. And I wholeheartedly believed that because we now had the means to make these stories interactive, it was the logical next evolutionary step. And I feel that walking simulators, while not while they're not necessarily like evolutionary superior to other types of games, they do offer the most crystallized, is probably the best word, crystallized way of telling a story in a game, because without all the gameplay elements surrounding it, you have to learn a combat system, you have to learn the interface of an adventure game, you have to learn how to juggle your stats and upgrade and all of that stuff. None of that is present. All we have is the story, and you're still in control. You're still exploring the story at your own pace. See, the problem with linear media, like movies and books, is that you're at the whim of an author. And technically, yes, I know you're still at the whim of an author in a computer game, but at least you have the illusion of autonomy. I mean, you can walk around the house in Gone Home any way you want. It's just that the story happens to be over here and you're pissing around over here, but you know, at some point you'll probably get bored and wander over to where the story is. By the way, something about the design of Gone Home is just absolutely fantastic in that it gives you that illusion of complete freedom. You can go anywhere, but it also very gently nudges you in the direction that it wants to go. And you've got a main story, but if you wander off the path, there's actually a couple of side stories that you can explore. It's fascinating. It's a very fascinatingly designed game, and it has a lot more depth than the people who just brushed it off will ever be able to appreciate. So to have a good story, you need someone to tell the story. And usually the way walking simulators work is that you pick up scraps of paper, or you trigger some sort of dialogue, some sort of monologue, in fact. Like you pick up a tape recorder, or in the case of The Town of Light, you pick up something and some ghostly voice starts talking to you, or maybe it's the protagonist. Again, that was not really very clear. If you don't have a very good voice cast, the best written dialogue of Mice and Men could just fall flat on its pancake ass. In the case of Caligo, the game we played earlier this week.
Living without us? Yes, it definitely will.
I just love it. I'm so sorry you can't hear this guy's voice, because he's kind of got this sort of dopey voice. Will it keep on living without us? Yes. Come down to Sesame Street and we'll see. Today's letter is P for pretentious wanking.
Does that mean I have to be reborn?
Yeah, voice acting not their strong suit. And it did make what I'm pretty sure was a game that took itself very seriously. It's not really Death's voice, at least not the way I imagined it. So, about the actual contents of the game, I've been saying that, gameplay is light in a walking simulator, because basically what you're doing is exploring an environment and uncovering a story, and then at some point the story ends and ta-da, credits roll. That's not to say you can't have some gameplay elements. And by gameplay elements, I mean things that wouldn't normally happen in real life. Like you wouldn't be asked to go look for secret panels in your parents' house, because why would they have secret panels containing the combination code to your sister's locker thing? Why did she have a locker in her room, by the way? That's weird. Did she steal it from the local high school? All I'm saying is having some gameplay elements in place, like, the combination, or that there's a door that's locked until the protagonist reads a certain bit of information and all of a sudden it opens up. The Town of Light does this all the time. You pick up something and then a gust of wind blows through the asylum and all of a sudden this wing is open that wasn't open before. Who did that? Ghost story. So some gameplay elements are of course allowed, but skimp on them. Like, you're not here to force people to rack their brains. And the good thing about walking simulators is they're very attractive to people who don't normally play a lot of games. They're attractive to people who play a lot of games as well, myself included, because I like to get engrossed and immersed in the story. But if you ask a person who's not normally accustomed to playing, say, an adventure game. I've seen people get really confused by the Sierra icon bar. When I click on that thing, why does it not do the thing that I thought it was going to do? With a walking simulator, all you really have to do is master the mouse look thing, because they're usually first person, and you're off and running. So some walking simulators have apparently taken offense, I guess, by the somewhat hostile reception that the genre has had since its inception. So some walking simulators have started incorporating some gameplay elements that I'm not very fond of. First of all, never, and I mean never, have a game over screen in a walking simulator. Observer, what was your problem? Ow. That wasn't very nice. Game over. Go fuck yourself. Why did you throw fucking McFuck-you-pans at me and have... There's another thing. Sneaking sections. Don't have sneaking sections either. Asking me to replay bits of a game when I'm engrossed and immersed in the story is just... I mean, he's not scary the second time around, is he? He's very annoying, but not very scary. So that completely kills the immersion for you there. You can still have a foreboding atmosphere and not throw fucking sneak sections at you, and especially not game over screens. That's a big no-no in my book. And on the flip side of that, if you're gonna put like a combination lock in front of me with a bunch of strange arcane symbols and not have a chart somewhere right next to it that tells me what these symbols mean, then you have lost already, because who has the patience for that? I'm speaking specifically to people who are making these hybrid mist/walking simulators. Like, you're going along fine and then halfway through the game suddenly there's a very mysterious sort of lock that doesn't really add anything to the story. I mean, it's not technically a walking simulator, but I am somewhat reminded of Phantasmagoria 2, which I guess you could say was one of the prototypes for a walking simulator, in that it doesn't really have any puzzles in it. Until the very end. And yeah, I'm gonna spoil the shit out of Phantasmagoria 2, The Puzzle of Flesh. Apparently there are several. By the end of the game, you will have wandered around and clicked on everything and initiated a bunch of conversations that all go nowhere, and maybe, used an inventory item on something else, but that happens very rarely. Most of the time, you're just clicking on shit waiting for FMVs to play. And then right at the end, the game suddenly remembers that it's supposed to be a game and throws a logic puzzle at you that has none of the rules explained, and it's just a hodgepodge of weird bullshit that you have to decode. No hints, nothing, just click on random shit until the thing unlocks and off you fuck. But anyway, those are my sort of not very well thought out and certainly not very well presented tips for what makes a good walking simulator. And let's not confuse a walking simulator and an adventure game, because let's be honest, they're sort of siblings, but they're not the same. And the line gets, of course, a bit blurred when you start introducing adventure game elements into your walking simulator. But by and large, a walking simulator is more or less exclusively focused on narrative and exploration. And it is a much more immersive experience than, say, an adventure game or an RPG or anything else really that has these gameplay elements that sort of get in the way of you and the immersion. And I know a certain person would in fact suggest that being in a VR environment would make a walking simulator that much more immersive, and he might be very much right about that. I, for one, love the shit out of walking simulators for reasons that I think I have already explained, but let me reiterate. The fact that you can sit down and play a game that is all about immersion and all about storytelling means that I never have to pick up a book again. Well, technically I could, but why would I when I've got beautiful games to play for you? Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, do whatever you kids do. Do leave me a comment, because I quite like the comments and I quite like doing these little on-camera, flippy, sort of unscripted things. So let me know. Let me know if you have any topics you want me to cover in the future. There are comments down there. You know the drill. But take care, and I will see you around the Chrono stream.